Cool guys, so we get this started. So thank you all for joining us today in another Parallels desktop launch. My name is Ari, I'm the Channel Manager for Parallels in Australia, New Zealand and Southeast Asia. And with me, of course, I have Kutchamarker, our Senior Product Manager for Parallels Desktop, and our beloved Maman Abdul Rahman, our Senior Marketing Manager for APAC. I'm just going to wait for you guys to get your coffees.
Yeah.
Cool. So as I said, today we're here to talk about Parallels Desktop for Mac. It's not the only product that we have on our portfolio. We're going to quickly be briefing, touching some points on Parallels Toolbox as well. Kurt's going to be doing some demonstrations of new tools. But if you do want to know more about the other products that we have, I'll be more than happy to discuss those with you guys later today. So Parallels works very closely with Apple and Microsoft, as you guys know, and we always try to bring the latest and the greatest in virtualizations. So with Parallels, desktop version 15 is no different. We fully support Windows 10, and we also support macOS Catalina as a host and as a guest once it's released by Apple. Okay. So here are some of the featured areas of innovation that we're bringing in Parallels Desktop 15 that we're going to be covering today, and of course Kurt is going to be demoing some of those. Some of those are actually graphics related, so we'll move to Metal to support DirectX 11, leveraging some of the Catalina innovations, additional integrations between Mac and Windows, new virtualized hardware, and of course not forgetting our enterprise business users with some additional management of security and license deployment. Okay. So here are some of the additional details from those categories that we're going to be covering today. I'm just going to quickly get
We've done it. He's fine.
it's right there. I'll just write it. Go. There we go. All right, and of course we just didn't add new features to the product. We put a lot of effort towards improving existing features that, again, some of those will be covered by Kurt on his incredible demonstration later on. All right, so let's cover some of those areas into more details. And of course, the first one is graphics related and our move from OpenGL into Metal. And that's to ensure that we actually support DirectX 11. So in previous versions, Parallels was supporting, in previous versions such as 13 and 14, we were supporting DirectX 9 and 10. And now with Parallels Desktop version 15, we support 9, 10, and 11. Any questions related to this topic? No? Cool. So what does that actually mean for any Parallels user? So it means that applications that didn't fully launch on Parallels Desktop 14 do launch now on version 15, and the ones that launch on version 14 have an incredible and much better performance and speed improvement.
I have a question just about that.
Yeah.
The list of games there, and then also on here. How do you decide what you're going to use as your like?
How do you decide what we're
How
going
do
to
you decide what
So-
you're going to use as your like?
What the team focused on was DirectX 11 games
Yeah.
that didn't have a Mac port.
Okay.
So we tried to pick games that people would like to play,
But you know,
and then we looked at ones with popularity and we get from there.
Okay.
That basically what they did is they tested a long list of games.
okay.
Yeah. So when you think about it, this is a good example, I think, for the question actually, because Age of Empires is one of Kurt's favorite games. And a lot of PC users, Windows users do play Age of Empires. So early last year, Apple released Age of Empires Definitive Edition. Microsoft released, thank you so much for correcting me. Which is, you all know how Age of Empires works. It's a strategy game, real-time strategy. And when Kurt was trying to launch the game in the past, this was the error message he was getting, okay, which basically says potential issue detected. He was kind enough to help us translate that so from Microsoft English to normal person English, which basically means you can play the game. Okay, but now with DirectX 11 support and Metal support, he can actually launch the game and play without any problems. And as a matter of fact, this is one of the games he is actually going to be showing during his demo.
It's a rough job, but I volunteered to do it, play the game through all the betas of Parallels Desktop 15 to make sure that the game was always going to continue to work.
And it's not just on, not just for games. So many CAD/CAM applications had the same issue, but now with the use of DirectX 11, that has been fixed. So this is an example of using Lumion 6.5. That was the error message you used to get in the past, and this is the screenshot of the application up and running on Parallels Desktop. And of course, Autodesk, the error message you used to get in the past, and running on Parallels Desktop 15 without any problems. So you might be asking, will all DirectX applications run great? It depends on the hardware you have on the machine. Okay, so if you have the latest and the greatest iMac and Mac Pro, that won't be a problem. But of course, if you're running a very old MacBook Air, it's about 4 or 5 years old, you might have some issues there. Okay, so always keep that in mind. It just depends on the hardware that you have on your machine. So another area that we'd like to focus, that we mentioned before, it's the improvement, sorry, not improvement, the focus on Mac OS Catalina. So Catalina works on version 14 and 15 as of today, but of course it's going to be fully supported once Apple releases this fall in the US, which is around September, October for us. So
is Parallels launching before Catalina?
yes.
Yeah.
So one
we're
thing,
launching
yes.
Today.
Catalina is coming out, who knows
Yeah,
when.
yes. Yeah.
That always happens to us.
Okay.
So we're going to launch at 5 p.m. today.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Sorry,
the
that was
embargo list.
yes. So we were on the embargo. That was my fault. So I do apologize. Until 5:01 p.m. today. So please refrain from
And
publishing
then we'll
anything.
get the rest of the content materials over to you after this year.
The official release goes out to the rest of the media tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So here's the engineering plan related to Catalina. So as it happened in the past, as soon as Apple releases Catalina to the public, we'll get it, we'll double check that Parallels Desktop 15 and 14 work just fine. There'll probably be some issues. And then we will come out with an update to Parallels Desktop 14 and 15 a couple weeks after Catalina ships. And at that point, it will be fully supported as a host and a guest on our product.
Okay.
I, however, am throwing caution to the wind, and I'm doing my demo on a beta release of Catalina. I rarely do this, but it was so cool, the features that are available. I decided to take the risk. So if it all crashes and burns in front of you, that's why. It's Apple's fault.
All right. So moving along, another great feature that we brought to Parallels Desktop 15 is Sidecar support in macOS Catalina. So for you guys that don't know, Sidecar actually means that you can use your iPad as a secondary screen. All right, so that's coming with Parallels Desktop.
Do you enable the finger to be used, or is it still a stylus that has to be used?
If your iPad will recognize your finger, it'll still work. The stylus will always be better. And you know, the stylus has things like double tap on it. You can't do that with your finger. So there's features you can't get with your finger.
It's interesting I asked the question because we also have full support for Apple Pencil. Okay, so if you launch your Windows, and of course you drag into your iPad, you can launch your Windows on tablet mode, and you can take full advantage of the Apple Pencil.
And I'll show you that in my demo.
Yes, so that will be covered on the demo as well. Another great feature that we're bringing on board in partnership with Apple is signing with Apple. Most of you guys have seen similar buttons, signing with Facebook, signing with Google, but we all know that Apple is very focused on security and privacy. Therefore, we're also bringing signing with Apple on board with Parallels.
And that'll be available not today, but when
Yes.
Catalina finally ships. It turned out to be too difficult to try and do that with betas and things changing on the fly. So we decided to put that off until after the final release of Catalina. So I can't demo that today.
So continuing every year, our users expect us to increase and make our product faster and better, which of course we have done. We put a lot of efforts towards improving our product. And before I move to the next topic, I would just like to see who of you guys know what TPM is.
Trusted Platform Module. Do you win a prize?
Yep.
Yes, yes.
All right, that was very quick.
Yep.
Thanks for that. So yeah, as I said,
You're in a room of technology journalists,
I
right?
think we should stop him from answering questions. Embargo him.
until what time?
5
So,
p.m.
thanks for that, Alex. It's a great, quick, fast answer. So my mom will look after you. As I said before, we haven't forgotten about our enterprise users. So again, for you guys that don't know, TPM is a chip that goes inside most Windows PCs that enables additional security features. That used to be a kind of like a blocker stop show for us in the past. A lot of our users were requesting a virtual version of this chip to assist them. This is what it used to be like when you launch TPM. When you launch BitLocker, you get a message saying that TPM was disabled, but now with this feature, TPM is enabled. Any questions?
No.
No?
No more cuts.
No more cards, okay. And of course, to continue again with enterprise business users, an additional feature that was requested by a lot of our users was a way to keep a consistent view mode, whether you keep coherence or full screen, whatever your business decides to use. Now we have a tick box that you can actually lock your view mode.
This request came primarily from IT managers who had like a classroom environment or a lab environment and had different sets of people coming in each day to use it. And so the class before, somebody switched to coherence or to full screen, and the next class is a bunch of beginners, and they're all really confused. It caused work for the IT manager. So they said, please give us control so that we can not have that happen and lower our burden of fixing problems.
Okay.
And so we did.
And moving along, we promised you guys that every time we launch a new version, we'll bring additional tools to Toolbox. So we're currently on Toolbox version 3.5. As you can see, some of the new features are actually highlighted, and Kurt is going to show a couple of those incredible tools during his demo. Before we move into Kurt's demo, do you guys have any questions regarding to the presentation? Are you happy for us to go to the next stage? Kurt, over to
Okay.
you.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just with the Catalina features, so the main call that you're doing is the Sidecar stuff and signing with Apple.
Those are two. There are other ones.
There are other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other ones which are, I guess, as flashy or interesting that you're trying to pull?
It depends on what you consider flashy and interesting, which each
Yeah.
person's different.
That's true.
My mom, when I showed her the demo, she goes, "Oh, that feature is really great.
Yeah.
Please show that."
Yeah.
And that's related to the screenshot capability
Okay.
added to Mojave and Catalina, and I'll show that in my demo.
Mhm.
And if you've used Catalina, you know you get security dialogues up to kazoo. They're really, really prevalent.
Prominent.
We tried to make that less intrusive with regard to Parallels Desktop,
Okay.
and so make it easier for customers.
Okay.
That kind of thing. And of course, we're always looking for new features. If Apple has some surprise feature in Catalina when they finally release it, which they often do, we will see if that makes any sense to bring it over to Windows apps and Windows, and
Okay.
we'll go from there. Question answered? Okay. Okay, so before I start my demo, let me just sort of show you what I've got. I got a relatively new MacBook Pro with a lot of RAM and a nice processor, and like a fool, I decided to go on Catalina Beta. So I'm on Beta 4, Beta 5, developer release for the demo, so I can show you the Catalina features. Like I said, if it all goes up in smoke, it's because of that. Okay, let me just walk through some of the features I can demo. please stop me if you have any questions. Or if there's some feature that's been in Parallels Desktop for a long time, and you have some questions about that, I'll be happy to answer those questions as best I can also. And I'll show you many of the things that Ari just talked about, okay? So I have here in a VM, I have a Windows 10 Insider Preview, a relatively recent version. I tend to run the Insider Previews also because I'm a fool and I have no fear. So with that regard, let's launch the demos. So you know that, as I already showed you, when you tried to launch Age of Empires Definitive Edition, you got these two dialogues. They're very sad to a person who cares about Age of Empires, and I'll tell you, it was unplayable, and that's a shame. So I volunteered to the engineering team that I would test Age of Empires with Parallels Desktop 15 when their first beta came out, and I did, and I'll show you the result. So I assume you're basically familiar with the kind of real-time strategy games like Age of Empires is a defining example of. So I have a civilization here, I have a bunch of villagers, they're gonna gather wood, they're gonna make weapons, and we're gonna fight off our enemies and take control of the world. And that's basically the goal of the game. I love it. If you're a first-person shooter fan, you might think it's just kind of boring and kind of slow. That's your problem. This is exactly what it's like and the speed which you see on a Windows PC. And I've been playing this game for years, and I really, really love it. It bummed me immensely that this new edition with better graphics and so on, I couldn't play in Parallels Desktop. And now I can, and I'm a happy person. Okay? Question?
And the jerkiness with the graphics in the beginning, is that because they're both, inside of
It's trying to do a bunch of things at once, yeah. So it's the splash graphics at the beginning have a couple of glitches there, but they're not horrible.
Sure. And would that be fixed in the final version, or?
It depends on a variety of things, and hard to predict.
Sure.
And it could be some Catalina issue, it could be a Parallels Desktop issue, it could be something unusual about what the game is doing that's not standard.
But we can see that it's quite smooth in actual.
Yeah, exactly right. So I wanted to show you everything, so you have to see the glitch and so on.
Yeah.
But I played this now for hours, and I quite enjoy it. It's a hard job, but somebody's got to do it.
And you're getting paid for it, so.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
Sweet.
Okay, so that's my demo of DirectX 11 game. Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
That's fine, just comprehensive testing.
We forgot to test model level, that's all.
There we go. We're out of here.
Have you seen Cud's bag?
Okay, so we have a small team of testers in Moscow that have been testing a large number of games and also CAD apps. Does everything work? It all depends on what hardware you're on and so on. And there are a few applications we found glitches with. We report either to Apple or to the game developer and say, hey, there's a problem here, and we'll go from there. Okay? So, real happy to do that. The metal work, the engineers worked very closely with Apple over several years to make sure metal in Catalina gives the best possible environment for running DirectX 11 or DirectX 9 and 10 applications on the Mac. If you do testing, and I hope you do, please do it on Catalina. You'll have your best experience. Apple has fixed a number of issues we reported with Metal in Catalina, and we have optimized our app for the Catalina version of Metal.
So Apple do listen to you?
They do, on occasion. The DirectX team, or the graphics team at Parallels, worked very closely with their counterparts at Apple. And I'll be honest and tell you, I went to this session at the developer conference on Metal and DirectX and so on, and within 10 minutes I was lost. They're really good, both sides. So I'm just so glad it works.
And what's the short version of why you couldn't do Metal last year, for example?
Well, we wanted it. What we cared about was providing real user benefit in the move to Metal. just doing it as a current buzzword didn't seem to add anything. So we've been working with Apple for several years to make sure that Metal was the appropriate platform for implementing DirectX 11. And to be fair to Apple, that's sort of not their focus, right?
Right.
And so we were a little bit unusual in our needs, and they were still supportive of us and responsive to what bugs we've submitted and things like this.
And obviously Metal is delivering better graphics than you could ever have possibly had
Yes,
before.
it's hardware accelerated, any recent Apple platform, including the watch. So Metal is the way to go. And when Apple deprecated it last year at the developers conference, we knew the writing was on the wall. We got to move off of OpenGL when they deprecated that. But OpenGL is still in Catalina. So just because it's deprecated doesn't mean it's removed. It probably won't be in the next version of macOS. So today, in Parallels Desktop 15, if you have an app, a Windows app that uses OpenGL, it still uses the OpenGL on the Mac, and we'll have to deal with that next year.
Sure.
Other questions? All right. So I'm running today the two most popular OSs for guests in Parallels Desktop, and that's Windows 10 and Windows 7. So we know that Windows 7 is going out of support in January of next year. And so we believe that lots of Parallels Desktop users will want to convert over to 10. So we put in a wizard to help our users do the transformation from 7 to 10 the most efficient way and the highest probability of success.
And free?
I can't guarantee that. Right now it's sort of free if you do various things. Who knows what Microsoft will change, but we also know that an upgrade of an OS is one of the more stressful things for an OS. We want to make sure that we didn't cause any problem. And we walk the user through the process, help them along. Whether you're converting a Windows 7 VM to Windows 10, whether you're adding a new VM to as 10, all these things are possible. So we wanted to add that in Parallels Desktop 15 to help our users who decide to get off of 7 because of the dropping of support next January. The other thing we did for our users is kind of interesting. You guys have been Parallels Desktop users for a long time, and so I don't think you're surprised or puzzled with things like coherence. But to the brand new user of Parallels Desktop, coherence, the idea of even running two OSs at once is kind of weird. And coherence, when you don't even see the other machine, is kind of surprising. So what we did was, let's see, let me bring up an app here. When you go into coherence the first time, like this, we bring up a little dialogue and helper that walks you, oh, this is what coherence is. Here's how you worry about it. Here's what it'll do for you. Here's the things that are different about it. And if you go, I really need that right now, and you can back out of it. And so it's a little wizard / tutorial that helps users with those features that are mildly puzzling to brand new users. And it's one example of a wizard. We're hoping to do more of those in the future, but these are the only two that are in Parallels Desktop 15.
The more hand-holding you can do for users, the better.
I think so too. It helps everybody. It makes our engineers sort of think about what would an average person think about this feature and so on. And when you've been using a feature for a decade or more, you sometimes forget that. And so that we think this is nice. And if it plays really well in the marketplace, we'll add more wizards in the future. Okay. So let me talk now about Catalina. So I have a lot of VMs loaded here. One of them is a Catalina beta, beta 5, and I can launch that as a guest. And the speed of the launch is not bad. I wish it was twice as fast, of course, I always do, but it's not bad. And so in a moment, I'll be running Catalina as a host, Windows 10 and Catalina as guest OSs in Parallels Desktop. You remember the basic idea is you can load as many OSs as you want, as you have space on your hard drive for the installation. You can run as many simultaneously as you have RAM for, because each virtual machine requires a certain amount of RAM to get locked down.
How much RAM is in this? 16? 32?
I got whatever was the
32.
maximum, 32. So I got a lot. This is a nice machine.
So that's must be a 15-inch.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Great.
So there's Catalina as a guest. That's supported now in both 14 and 15 with some caveats. There's some things that have issues with because Catalina is still in beta, and there's a KB article on our website that tells you about those issues. Hopefully we can fix all those for update 1 of Parallels Desktop 15 and update 2 of Parallels Desktop 14. So, some Catalina specific features. As you know, or you may not know, a number of our users choose to read their email in the virtual machine because they like WinOutlook, because they like mail, who knows why. But if you do, and if I was one of those users and I want to mail this file to somebody, it's kind of a hassle to drag the file over to Windows, something like this. So we added support using the Share menu in macOS. If you go to the Share menu now, you get a new item there, Send with your Windows email client. And when I click this, it goes by pretty fast, so watch. It creates a mail message, gets it all ready for you. You can address it to whoever you want to. Like that. Now, was that possible before? Sure, but you had to go through a couple extra steps. So we're just trying to make things easier to do. This is one of the integration points between macOS and Windows, and we think it'll be useful because WinOutlook and Mail in Windows 10 always rank in the top 75 applications used by people in Parallels Desktop. That's a big list. So being in the top 75 is a major use of those applications. You also may remember that Apple changed the way screenshots are done in Mojave and in Catalina. If I take a screenshot here, it gets put here as a temporary thing, and you can open it up with a Mac editor and annotate it, do whatever you want to do with the screenshot. Well, that's great, but what if you really preferred to use a Windows application for that? So what we did was we made it quite possible for you to take a screenshot, like this, the same way, and grab that temporary file and drag it over to Windows. And now you have that file annotated in Paint or whatever application you choose to use for your image editing in Windows. Again, was it possible before? Sure, but it was less streamlined and less easy to do. That temporary holding state of the screenshot, we are able to tap into that and bring that over into Windows. And the last feature I want to show you is Sidecar support. So I'm going to disconnect the screen here for a moment. And so what I'm going to do is use my iPad here, and I'm going to open Sidecar, and hopefully I'll be able to project the iPad. That's the plan. I don't think I need to. I wasn't using it, but it's a good thing to do. Try. Thank you. So I'm going to Sidecar now and saying, hey, of all the devices out there, connect to Kurt's iPad. So to do this demo work, I'm running a beta of iOS 13 on this iPad, and of course I'm running Catalina beta here. And I am. It's a little crazy. So that's near to the screen. It's summer meeting room, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
There we go. All right. So you can now take an auxiliary window, whether it's a window from the Mac OS. Where is it?
Kind of a folder for a second.
Okay, thank you.
There it is. And it's gone.
There we are. So, and put it on Windows. I have been using this feature now for about 6 or 8 months. And I gotta tell you, it's really great to have a small extra display that is your main display on your Mac. I tend to put status windows there, things that I want to monitor but aren't really my main focus, and I reserve my main screen for whatever app I'm using with that and editing and that on the Mac, and it's just working out great. There's a feature we added features to Parallels Desktop that I'll show you here. I'm going to make this window a little smaller because the iPad doesn't have the biggest screen. And when you hover on the full screen button, you get a now little menu. I'm going to move that to the iPad. Come on, guys, don't make a liar out of me. Wow. There we are. And so Windows has a touch mode. So you can turn that on in Windows 10, tablet mode. And when you do so, this becomes kind of like a Surface tablet. So I can launch an app. Come on, guys. There we are. And draw in the app. I'm getting really laggy response now. I'm puzzled.
Well, it's all betas and we have lots of computers in the room.
That's the case, but it wasn't. I did test this morning and it worked just fine. So I'm quite puzzled. But when you aren't mirroring the screen and doing all the other things, you're able to use the Apple Pencil. We have support for the Apple Pencil for operations like double tap on the pencil pad, things like this. So we're fully supporting that. So you can use your Apple Pencil on your iPad, especially when Windows is in tablet mode. It's a really nice experience. Notwithstanding the demo I'm giving you right now. But we're real pleased about this. Like I said, I've been using the iPad as a second screen now for a long time, and I miss it when I don't have it. You get used to it really quickly. So we're real happy about this. We're glad that Apple added Sidecar, and we're pleased to support it in Parallels Desktop 15.
I always say Parallels makes running Windows better on a Mac better than Windows runs on Windows.
It's not a high bar.
Yeah.
And that was not a sponsored post.
All right, guys, we're back in
Okay.
business.
I have one more demo feature in Parallels Desktop 15, and then I'll show you some of the new things in Parallels Toolbox. So, my last demo.
I don't like that sound.
All right, it looks like I'm sort of in control again, maybe. Okay, so last demo is Microsoft added to Windows 10 an Xbox emulator. And it's a little app. It's in beta right now, but it's just called Xbox. And this enables you to play an Xbox game on your Windows 10 PC. So the graphics team at Parallels made sure that worked in Parallels Desktop 15 with our move to Metal and DirectX 11. So to make the environment fully like an Xbox, we also added another kind of Bluetooth support. We've had Bluetooth now for a while, but it turns out there are a variety of different Bluetooth categories. We did not previously support Bluetooth low power mode, and the Xbox controller uses that. So,
That's the LE standard, right? Bluetooth.
yeah, I believe so. So I'm going to try to add the Xbox controller as a supported peripheral to Parallels Desktop 15, like this. There we go, that's good.
Secure. Love it.
And now it's ready to go. All right.
Yeah.
So I will sacrifice to the demo gods later, and I will start the Xbox app in Windows 10. Every game I've tested works fine. I have not tested every game on the Xbox library.
He's
I
getting there.
haven't had the time, but I'm working on it,
Yeah.
right? So I happened to get this game, looked kind of nice, and it was only 9 gigabyte download. The other game I liked and wanted to use was 120 gigabyte download. I kind of said no to that.
Morning, Diego.
It's just a cinematic.
Your wake-up has been sanctioned by the ISA. We lost contact with the ground crew 450 hours ago. We have tried to establish further communications, but we are not getting any responses. We need you to investigate.
Okay, doesn't it make sense to do visual checks first?
We have already looked at the data. The ISA has made the executive decision that you report to the surface post-haste. You are our emergency response.
What exactly is the emergency?
The ground crew found an organism the ISA believed to be dangerous.
And this is me using an Xbox controller to control an Xbox game on a Mac. So if somebody walked into the room right now, they would be really confused. What the heck is going on here? So I won't bore you with my horrible gameplay, but I am using the Xbox controller to run this Xbox game. I downloaded a new game last night. It worked just fine. So I can tell you that every game I've tested works. It's possible there's some games that don't work in the emulator on Windows 10. I can't.
Okay.
And it's
You're
smooth.
going to take a lander.
It's pretty nice.
You also got Age of Empires 4 and it's much better graphics and smoother.
I won't walk you through the whole game. It'll take several hours, but I think it's working out really well. We're quite pleased to be able to have our users use any Xbox game they want in Parallels Desktop 15 and Windows 10. And thank you, Microsoft, for doing this.
You said you can't play games on the Mac.
I guess is there any discussion within Parallels? I guess because gaming is such a big part of the things that Parallels lets you do on the Mac that you can't really do otherwise. Is there any discussion or interest around game streaming stuff like Stadia or xCloud?
I have not heard anything from the engineering team on that.
Right.
We'll see what happens. The current, we've worked on DirectX 11. Unfortunately, that's not the current level of DirectX. That's a big job going to 12. Maybe for next year, but not making any promises.
Right, but I mean,
I understand what you're saying. It's a different direction. I haven't heard the engineers talk about that.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to ask them.
Okay, sure.
Good? Okay. That completes the features I wanted to show you in Parallels Desktop 15. I'll spend just a moment to show you toolbox things, and then happy to open up for more questions. And I think Ari has some closing remarks to make.
Yes, sir.
So, as Ari mentioned, when we first released Toolbox, we promised we'd add new tools every release, and we've kept that promise. We're now up to about 40 tools in the Mac version of Toolbox, and I think this is great. It's been really, really popular with users. What tool you think is the most important tool varies from user to user, as you would expect, okay? A tool that I think is really great in the current version, just added, is Clipboard History. Clipboard's been around from the very beginning of the Mac, and I don't know how many times I go on, I paste it like, oh, I forgot, I added something else to the clipboard, I erased the thing I really wanted. So now we have Clipboard History, and you can keep a history for days if you wish, and then drag things to your app, and it's a really nice addition to Clipboard functionality. And I think this will become one of the more popular tools in the toolbox.
Is it synchronized to iCloud? The reason why I ask is because I use an app called Copied,
Yes?
which synchronizes the last 1,000 clippings to iCloud, and it also makes them available on my phone. And if I open the app on my phone, anything I copy on my phone goes into the same clipboard, and then I can have that on my Mac as well. And that's just really cool.
I completely understand. I agree with you there. I have not seen that done. I haven't tested it myself. I have not heard the engineers speak about that as a scenario they're supporting. So I think right now it's just the Mac clipboard.
And
it doesn't sync to iCloud.
That's right. And how many items does the clipboard save?
Oh, you can, it's a parameter you can set. I want to save history for 3 days.
That's great.
That could be like 1,000 items.
I mean, I got that app because I really wanted that feature, and I knew that there were apps that could do that. But to have it for free is awesome.
Yes.
It's
And
part of the
I use equation feature a lot in Word, and when you look at it here, it doesn't look really great. When you paste it in an application, it's the full equation as you would expect. So I'm real happy about that. I am often asked, what's the most popular tool in Toolbox? And without a doubt, it's download video. So download video lets you take a video from Facebook or from YouTube and bring it down to your Mac. And the use of it's pretty easy. You just drag the URL to the tool like this, and it downloads the highest resolution version available on YouTube. And
do you have to tweak that feature because YouTube makes changes, or Vimeo, or other people?
you are correct that video downloading changes a lot. This is the one tool that we can rev without revving Toolbox, and we change it for exactly that reason. So I try to download one video each day, so I can alert the team if, oh, hey, something's changed here in Facebook now. Can you fix this? And then next day it's fixed.
Great.
So I love this feature. And here's that video. I'm not going to double click on it, as you know why.
Yep.
I'm going to drag it to the QuickTime player, and here's the video.
Who's that?
Another tool that's become very, very popular among web developers is the tool for resizing images. I've got a folder here of images of varying sizes. I want to put them in a table or whatever. I need all the images the same size. That's a tedious job. So all you do now with the Resize Image tool is drag the folder to here, tell it how you want the images made. I want them all to be 400 wide and whatever is needed to keep their same aspect ratio. And when I say resize, that's how quickly it happens. It's done. And so this now has all the images ready for me to use in my table or whatever. I have had people tell me, whoa, this is the app I use, or the tool I use every single day.
And can it also change format, so go from PNG to JPEG?
And it doesn't do that correct today. Changes everything to PNG, I believe. That can't be true. I'm going to check on that. I'm not sure of that.
Because that's something that people want to. It's not just resizing, but changing the format.
Yes.
And removing metadata.
Yes, I'll look. I don't know. I don't remember that if that's removed. Okay, that's what I had planned to show you. I will be happy to try and answer questions and stuff, but Ari has some closing remarks that I think you're going to care about. I
Yes,
will
sir. Thank you.
stop AirPlay. I'll try. Can you take over?
Just refreshing.
Is that Skellig McCall? The island? The Catalina?
I believe it is.
Yeah, that's the wallpaper there.
And this is the default desktop background for Catalina, at least the beta releases.
Just wait for you to
I'm open. How do I turn AirPlay off here?
Just go.
Unplug it.
Yeah, unplug it. That's
Go to here.
Is it recording?
Oh. Happy to do that. Does that help? Oh, you want to change the source?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just put the remote here.
The feature is
It's still there.
It's time travel.
First thing.
It's just gonna, like I said, it's just
not
part of the
forever.
wall. It's part of the wall, part of the room.
That's where you need to physically turn it off at the
Call
wall.
it the paint room now.
I'm like,
And it'll run you straight through.
You might have to turn it off. Can you turn it off at the wall?
do you want to see it?
I think they've tried turning it off.
No, but that was just turning it off by the remote. We turn it off the wall. Should reboot.
No, don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure you guys can see it anyway, and you guys gonna have a printed version. But
Yeah, we'll be sending you the deck as well.
Sorry about that.
that's right, technical difficulties. So again, guys, so just keep in mind that this is on the embargo to today, 5:01 p.m. Australian Standard Time. After that, you can go wild. But for now, pricing in USD is as follows. So Parallels Desktop 15 for Mac subscription is $79.99 per year. Again, the sheet you guys are going to be getting is going to have the Australian pricing.
Yeah, the Australian pricing is
In the press release.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
So
sorry,
you see the difference?
Yeah.
This is USD just because it's before the embargo. But anyway, Parallels Desktop Pro and Business editions, which also fall on subscription, is $99.99 per year. And you can upgrade from any version of Parallels, any previous version, to 15 for $49.99.
Also, you could have plugged that HDMI cable into your Mac. That would work too.
Yeah.
Details.
Minor details. I can put it close if you're gonna get a screenshot of that.
I already zoomed in. There we go.
All right.
There we go. Thank you.
That's the US dollars. The
Yes.
one in press release is AUD.
AUD. So again, on embargo to 5:01 p.m. today, and now we're open to questions, guys.
1, 2, 5,
5:01.
Yes.
That's right. That's it.
5:01 p.m.
5:01 p.m. I just said it too quick.
Levi's.
This is the first city.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So now we're open to questions, guys. Thank you so much.
So what's the earliest Mac or the oldest Mac that this will work on?
So what we changed a few years ago, that we don't specify hardware restrictions, or we specify Mac OS. And so we go back 2 releases in Mac OS, and then of course they add Catalina, and that's it. So we did drop support for 70 or something in this release, the oldest one. It turns out that's easier than most Mac users don't know what processor they have.
Yeah.
So they know what Mac OS they're running, so we support that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Question?
Yeah, sorry, so back to which version?
Yosemite.
Yosemite.
I think so, yes. So what the engineers, at the beginning of the development cycle, will go, okay, the oldest OS we supported last version, we're now dropping that, then we'll remove any code that's conditionally compiled based on that Mac OS, and then we'll move forward from there.
And these are some the packaging that we have. So some of the retailers will have the red box. Apple has an exclusive small box. And at the back here you can see the what Kurt mentioned, that we removed hardware and went down to the system requirements, as in operating systems.
What's it say?
It says Sierra.
Oldest one we now support
So
Sierra.
yeah, Mojave, High Sierra, and Sierra are supported. Anything lower than that, unfortunately, no.
We've actually had users say, can't you go back and support Leopard or something like that? Guys, you're still running that. I'm sorry, you got a lot of other troubles.
And so is it now only a subscription product, or can it be purchased as perpetual?
Only subscription.
Yeah. So that means this is the first year perpetual was dropped, or was that dropped last year? I can't remember.
It's something that we have been working towards. So just like any other brand, we're slowly migrating from perpetual to subscription. And now it's just the last.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have a new version every year anyway.
Yes.
We have to, because the world changes around us.
Yes.
If either Apple or Microsoft makes a big significant change, typically we have to make a change too. I remember very well speaking to the engineers when the Retina display first came out, and they were like tearing their hair out. Oh God, this is going to be horrible. And then they got it to work. So that kind of thing really affects us a lot.
In the press release, it says that perpetual customers get 3 months of Toolbox separately. Is that's previous perpetual customers, or if you're not doing it?
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ari, you're not selling perpetual here in
We're
Australia.
not selling perpetual.
Other parts of the world that
Yes.
they are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what that refers to.
That's why.
Okay. Gotcha.
Country by country decision, or region by region decision.
Okay.
You still doing Parallels Access? Where you
Yes,
going?
yes, we are.
We still do.
We aren't actively adding too many features to it. We're all keeping it running. It's used by a wide variety of people, and it's still included, bundled along with the Parallels Desktop subscription. So if you have a Parallels Desktop subscription, you have Toolbox and access for the same duration of that subscription.
Which is great.
Obviously the call out is all within Catalina stuff, but you're supporting all of the new Windows 10 features they've had recently as well, correct?
Yeah, I don't know the feature we're not supporting.
Okay.
We had looked forward to, what was the feature they dropped just recently? We got to work. Where you could put multiple apps inside some one window. I forget what they called that feature, Microsoft did. And they had it in the early betas, and we worked really hard to support it, and then Microsoft dropped the feature, so we don't support it, of course.
Okay.
So, yeah, the answer is yes. I don't know of any single feature that we don't support in Windows.
So, I accept your point about talking about which versions of the operating system is supported, but to get reasonable games performance, for example, what sort of hardware do you need, practically speaking? I take the point about the amount of RAM.
It depends a lot on the game. Okay, so the killer games from that perspective of requiring hardware resources are typically first-person shooters, and those require a boatload of CPU power and especially graphics card support. I have gamer friends who think nothing of dropping $1,200 on a new graphics card to get 3 more frames per second in some fancy game they're using. So it's very dependent on the game. I had an early version of Parallels Desktop 15 running on a much older MacBook Pro, and I didn't get the performance I needed for certain games. But on this one I do. I wish I could be very precise to know exactly what it is, and the issue is it depends on so many variables, it's hard to predict. That's one of the reasons we have the 15-day trial of Parallels Desktop. And when you load that on a new Mac, we will download Windows for you if you ask, and you won't have to pay for Windows yet. You'll have it for a little while, and you can test it and see how things are working. It doesn't work for your game, you don't want to buy it, don't buy Windows, don't buy Parallels Desktop, move on with your life. And if it does, great. Buy them both, and then I got an environment. I'm sorry that's so waffly, but it's just there's just so many variables that it's hard to predict.
I've got a MacBook Air 2018, 8GB RAM, Core i5, and I'm running Parallels Desktop 14.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of performance increase should I see running Parallels Desktop 15 on the same hardware?
On the same hardware, the performance difference you'll see is Office apps launch much faster. Word launches about 80% faster now in Parallels Desktop 15. In general, you'll see the user interface is more responsive to your changes and your commands. And there was one other bullet point we had for the performance.
So it had 80% faster Microsoft Office applications, 3D
Oh,
graphics,
some games
80%.
that wouldn't launch before because they require DirectX 11 or something like this. They now will launch, and that's both for games and for CAD applications. Yeah, I'll be very frank and say it's getting harder and harder to deliver those performance increases with each new passing game. We're at the asymptote of what the Mac has in hardware, and so there's not a whole lot to squeeze out of that area now. We'll keep trying, however, and we're looking forward to having more performance improvements in future years, but hard to predict. The performance team is the last team that touches the software before it goes out the door, because they don't want to optimize something and have it changed by the other teams or by Apple. So as soon as things are relatively stabilized, the performance team goes after it and tries to find tweaks to add things, and that's what happens. So I think you'll be pleased.
Well, hopefully the fan stops
I
revving up
agree,
as
the
quickly.
rainbow cursor just kills me. I hate when I see that.
Well, it's more that you hear the fan in your Mac.
And we added, did you see this in the last release?
There we go.
Okay, so we added this little control right here, which shows you the CPU load. And if it's really high, it'll be red, and so you know what's going on in your processor. I'm seeing less and less red now, so performance is improved. But it is an issue. I think you'll be pleased when you install it on that machine.
So still trying to pin you down a bit on this. So specifically for the Xbox emulator thing, I mean, what sort of hardware are you going to need to get decent results from that?
I haven't seen a chart We tested on these following Macs, and here's what performance got tolerable and so on. I did not try it on the older machine that I told you I had early betas of Parallels Desktop 15 on. On this machine, it's just great. That's all the data I have. I wish I could tell you more.
And that's a 2019 MacBook Pro
Yes, it's
15
a
inch.
relatively recent machine.
32 gig of RAM and
and
Core
we're
i7.
real pleased with it. I got the better processor. I got
i9.
a lot of memory. So
i9?
i9, yes,
i9, yeah.
2.4 gig.
With a Radeon Pro Vega
Yeah.
with something 20 gig. Yeah.
So I got a good machine, and that was primarily to show games and stuff in the press tour this time.
I mean, for the cost of that machine, you could buy several Xboxes. So if you really want to play Xbox, buy an Xbox. But it can do
I agree, but
Yeah.
if you just as you already need Parallels Desktop for some other reason, you upgrade the Mac, and you get Xbox for free, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to hurt Xbox sales. I agree with you. If you want one, you'll just go get one. But I have heard some people say, I don't want another machine in my house. I only have so much, shelf space. So there's that. I'll be happy to ask the engineers, have they tested across the Mac line, and where's the performance break? Where does it get tolerable, and where does it get unplayable? And let you know.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I just don't know. It's a very reasonable question.
I mean, I'm not after
I know.
everything better than this is okay and everything worse, but an
an
indication
inkling,
of
yes.
at what point it starts.
Question is very reasonable. I don't have an answer off the top of my head today, and I haven't heard the engineers talk about a spread of Macs that they've tested. Probably they've been so focused on getting the release out, that probably has been high on their list, but once the release is out and they begin working on Catalina final release, I'll ask them to do so. And they might be able to give me a guess. The testers have been doing the game testing, might have an idea. I did add the Xbox emulator thing to their testing regime early on. We first heard it was available, and they said, we're so pleased it ran way better than we ever would have thought, and so that's what we added to the demo.
Excellent. Do you guys have any other questions?
Okay.
I think that's it.
So I will use some answers from the graphics team. I'll try and get those for you. Might take a while. And thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the demo. And I'm looking forward to hearing your results of using Parallels Desktop 15. Please do try it on Catalina.
Sure. Might be waiting for the final version.
I understand. That's reasonable. I'll admit I was a little nervous of going to a beta host OS and a beta guest OS and a beta Parallels Desktop 15. Oh my God, I'm like, challenging the gods here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Yes.